Hi guys, it's Nat here. Hope you're doing well. So I am on for my first of 2 tutorial videos showing you how I'm going to use these awesome products that I got from PandaHall. So I'm just putting up the photos to remind you what I unboxed. If you want to see the unboxing, I will link that down below so you can check it out. Now, remember there is a coupon code, which is YXYTNAT. Use that upon checkout if you do purchase anything from PandaHall, and you get 10% off of your order. That's valid till August 2026 as well, so you've got plenty of time. There's a link down below to PandaHall and also links to the individual products that I'm using and I'm showing you in these photos. So without further ado, I've got a lot to do, so let's get on with it. So I've dragged out all of this stuff to do some gel printing with. So I've got the tissue paper, I've got a big gel plate there. I think it's 8 by 11 inches or something. So plenty big to do an A4 page and extra, which I find really handy. I've got my acrylic paints and my poster paints. I do end up just using mostly just the acrylics. Got some mark making tools, just junk and that I've found around the place that I might try. And I do have a set of like foam tools and glue scrapers and that I've put away for this sort of thing. I've got some clay stamps and that, so we'll get to it and see what sort of a mess I can make. Got the huge bits of tissue paper. I've folded it in half and I'm just cutting them down, so there's multiple pieces there. It's a good way to cut them all at once. Folding that in half again and cutting it down. And that gives me a piece that's bigger than my gel plate, so I've got nice edges there to be able to pull up. So I've got my gel plate out and I'm just putting some acrylic on. It's a dark brown colour this. I've got my roller, I'm rolling it out. I've got another piece of tissue paper there to stamp my stamps off on and clean my roller on, and I'll use that as well for collages. So I used one of the clay stamps there just to imprint the pattern. I'm putting a lighter colour brown over the top. I think I'm using 2 different browns there. Now I did wait until the textured paint dried before I put this pickup coat on. And I found it took not long to do that because it was quite thin, so probably 5-10 minutes I'd leave it before I put the pickup coat on, and then the pickup coat I would leave for anywhere between 10 to 30 or 40 minutes. So I'm using a paint roller there just to roll it down to get good contact. Now there are creases in the tissue paper, but I don't mind that. It ends up adding nice texture to my prints. So very carefully pulling it up from the corner once it's all dry. So I haven't done a lot of gel printing. I'm still working out the difference between the paints and how long to leave things to dry and what colours to use. So I did it over a 2-day period, and the first day was a lot of trial and error. But hey, that one didn't rip and I was quite happy with it. So I'm putting down some gold paint here, nice and thin. You can hardly see it on there. I always think it's not enough paint, but it works really well. Got some plastic tablecloth and I'm lying that on top to try and get the imprint. I put some book page over the top just to help me be able to push down nice and hard to get good contact. Then I pull the tablecloth off. I let that dry for the 10 minutes or so, and then I'm putting a top coat on there. I've got a nice dark green, like a pine green. Just carefully putting that over the top. Then I'll carefully lay my tissue paper over the top of that. Press it down gently. You've got to be careful. The tissue paper is thin, so if you press too hard and rub too hard, you will break it. So I gave that a good half an hour to dry, and now I'm carefully pulling it up. You can see there it's just started ripping just a tiny bit down the bottom. Most likely it wasn't completely dry. Just got to be very careful. The gel plate is so sticky, so when I put the tissue paper back down, it just sticks to it again.
But you can see the gold there when you turn the paper and it looks beautiful, the pattern. So I really liked that one. Going in with some tan coloured paint. Got a fair bit of paint there. Now I'm just putting some bubble wrap on top. I'm just trying a whole lot of different stuff. It's fun to experiment with the gel play and different textures. Again, using the book page to press the plastic down to get good contact. Then carefully pull that up. So let that dry, and now I'm adding my pickup coat. Now I thought I'd try turning it over and pulling the gel plate off. Sometimes you'll find that that can work better. It's just what suits you. So I thought I'd move on to using a stencil here, and I'm putting down two colours. So it's a black and a maroon I have there. Place the stencil on top. Now decide I'll add a piece of tissue paper to the top of that, and then my book page to press it all down. That way we should get a print on the tissue paper that we've put on top as well. So that makes an interesting pattern that we can use. And then there's paint on the stencil, so I figure I might as well get some more tissue paper to clean the stencil off with a bit. And again, a bit more pattern on that paper. So once the paint's dry, I'm putting my pickup coat on, and for this one I'm using some gold and some copper metallic paint. Now I did leave the paint to dry for a good while, and I go to pull it up and it's looking beautiful. I love it. And then you'll see I rip down the bottom, and then it's ripping some more there, and it ends up like that. So I think I used a bit too much paint and didn't let it dry long enough. So I'm trying again with similar colours here. I think this is the next day I slept on it. I realised that, you know, I'm just using a bit too much paint sometimes, and I'm just not letting the centre dry enough. The outside will be dry, so I think it's safe to pull up, but the centre's not dry. And then it does rip quite easily. Repeating the same process here to get the patterns onto the tissue paper. Going in again with my golden copper paint. Of course, I've let that base coat dry first. Used a bit less paint. And then I went out in the garden and let this dry for about an hour, and then I even used the heat tool on just the centre bit, just for a little bit. I'm going very careful here because I really loved the print I got before, and I was so upset that it ripped. So some very slow pulling off there. And that one worked out really well. Not quite as nice because I didn't have as much of the gold and copper on, but still beautiful. So now I'm putting a layer of black paint on. While it's wet, I'm putting down this magazine page. It's just got adverts and that. I'm just interested to see if I can get a little bit of transfer and what will transfer from it. And you can see there I've got some of the black text pieces. I had an idea and I thought, I think that would look really cool in a sort of industrial style print. So I've got out some foam stamps there, just some number and alphabet stamps, and I'm rolling some of my black paint onto those and just pressing them onto my gel plate, just to add to what we've already got there. And then my pickup layer, I'm using some silver and some grey paint. Very similar colours, but one's metallic. I didn't want it too shiny, that's why I mixed it with some normal grey paint as well. Left that dry for ages, and I love the way that turned out. We'll use a bit of that later on. So now I'm cutting my smaller bits of paper down even more. because I want to try doing some stamping on my tissue paper to see how that comes up. So I've got this brick wall stamp. I'm using a timber brown stays on ink. And that way, if I want to use wet mediums over the top of it, it's not going to run. I love the way that turned out. I've got some Tim Holtz numbers and dates and that here. They haven't been used, so they're still all together, so I thought that's a great way to stamp them on. And the wood grain, I got all sorts of different colours of stays on inks, but I ended up just using the timber brown because I really loved the way it looked. Now I've got a set of mushroom stamps, and because I'm doing some mushroom themed bits and pieces for these projects, I thought I would stamp these out on some tissue paper as well. And they come out so clean and crisp. I love it. And they're all ready now for me to use in future projects. Some text stamps and labels there as well.
So that was a fun jelly plate session with the tissue paper that I got from PandaHall. You can see here I've still got a stack of the stuff that I cut up, and I have piles and piles left, which is great. So it's good fun, and this is the main reason I got it, to use on the gel plate. But I will be leaving it in the big sheets because it would also be awesome for me to wrap my journals up when I post them off to people. So I'll just put that to the side. So we'll have a look at the prints that I did get. Now I did this over about a 2-day period. It takes that long because you want to wait for things to dry in between layers all the time. So it's best off to do a layer and then do some housework or watch something on TV, bit of gardening, whatever, and then come back to it because it's hard not to pull them up too early. Now, it's the first time I have tried using tissue paper, so it was a big learning curve for me, and I had a lot of boo-boos in the first day. And then overnight, you know, I thought about how I would do it the next day, and it was a lot smoother for me. So I have figured it out, and I can't wait to get back to it and do another couple of days in the future. Make a whole lot more now I know what I'm doing a bit better. I did do one that disintegrated on me, so I tried recreating it and just using a little less paint to do the pickup layer. Not quite as pretty as the one that disintegrated was, which I'll show you. I do have some bits of it left. Has some beautiful gold. And I used the gold, I think it was gold and copper as a pickup layer. But I used a bit less on this one, so it's not showing through as much, but it's still absolutely beautiful. And I used a stencil on that. Thought I'd try a few different bits and pieces to make the marks and the texture, which was a lot of fun. But in the future, I think I'll just pick one, like where stencils for a day or something, and then mark making tools on another day and do a whole pile would be better, because I had stuff all over my bench. This is probably one of my favourites, if not my favourite. Now, I did use a magazine page initially. Used some black paint and a magazine page. Now, the magazine page had black text and text boxes, but it also had colour bits. Now, I've seen people do prints like that, but they tend to use black and white pages with big groups of black and that for the best results. Now, I didn't really have time to find that sort of thing, so I just quickly grabbed, because I thought of it last minute, quickly grabbed this page that I used. And I thought it'd be interesting just to see what it did pick up. And it did pick up some of the text boxes and bits of text. Can't read the text, but I loved the way it looked. So then I just did some stamping on top and put silver and grey on it as a pickup layer. And I think that is gorgeous. So basically these will be used for collaging mostly. That's why, even though, especially in the first day, I ripped a lot of the pieces, they'll still be great for collaging with, because I'm going to rip them up anyway. Collaging and backgrounds and that sort of thing. I love this. I did a print and it did leave some of the brown paint where the creases were in the tissue paper. So then I added another layer of cream paint just to pick up
that brown paint, and I really like that. Simple, but it's such a great background. This one I just painted colours on and then used some paint to pick it up. So you saw me do some of these. There are some that you didn't see me do because it would be too long a video if I showed all of it. And when I finish showing you these, I'm going to do a 1 or 2 little projects to show how I intend on using them, or one way I intend on using these. So this was the ones that I pressed over the stencil. You saw me do some of that. And then to clean the paint off the stencil. So these will be fun to use as well. You could use them as is as texture, but you could also colour in bits or stamp over the top as well to add a bit more. Don't want to take too long with this. Now we did do the stamping at the end and that turned out so cool. So these are pieces that are just ready to go. I can rip them out when I want a mushroom and use my matte medium just to stick them on a tag or on a page. I love these texture ones as well. Nice big stamps, really easy just to ink them up and put them on the tissue paper. Great way, like with the little stamps like that. Since we've got a lot of paper around the edge here that hasn't been used, I'll be cutting that off and keeping it and then stamping on it so I don't waste the tissue paper. Love this Tim Holtz, a lot of stamps. So instead of taking those stamps apart individually and stamping them, I just left them as is because it's a new set. They're still all stuck together, and just inked it up and stamped it like that. This was the magazine page that I used to do the text print that I showed you before. You can see the colour bits. I really love the way that's turned out, so I'll be keeping that for some collaging as well. That was the bubble wrap one. So just paint and then bubble wrap to get the texture, and then just picked it up with some more paint. Very simple. Love this one, got a little bit of a tear in it. So I used gold paint first and used the plastic tablecloth on that one to get the texture, and then green paint to pick it up. And it's really nice when you move it around, you see the stencil pattern. This is one of the first ones I did, a bit heavy on the paint. But I used some clay tools to make the marks in that. Now I also had tissue paper on the side to roll my roller on and clean my stamps and that off on. And that will be great to rip bits off of to use in collages. This one I just used some PVC pipe, which I painted the paint onto. So if you've got a bit of paint left over, do things like that to make some marks. It's another one I might actually colour in or stamp over. That's just another one of the papers that I had to clean my roller in that one. This one, I used just some, I think it was a glue scraping implement to get the pattern for that one. And yeah, this was the first day, can't you tell? Rips everywhere. But I realised that I tend to use too much paint for my pickup layer. And then I don't let it dry enough in the middle. And then when you pull, sometimes you got to be very careful when you pull the tissue paper because it can rip, especially if it's at all wet. So there were a few on the second day that I actually took over to the other bench, and I got my heat gun and just made sure the middle section was dry. That's just another one. Pieces that I cleaned my roller on and my bubble wrap on. It's one of my first ones that I did. I only ripped a little bit, that one. Used mark making tools with that one again, but as you can see, very heavy on the paint, which isn't what you want when you're using the tissue paper. This one is like the dark green one I showed you, where I used the stencil and the gold paint, and then I used some light green to pick this up. But because the colours are quite similar, usually you're best to have your dark and light together just so you can see the difference, the contrast. But if you turn this around, you can see the pattern with the gold paint. So I reckon I'll stamp over the top of that. These were just some bits that I had that I used just to do some mark making. I think this was a secondary pickup that I did. Just wanted to see what it looked like, and I love the texture, but it does need a bit more. This is one. This would have been beautiful too. Look at it. I love it. but I disintegrated it. So that's when I was getting frustrated the first day, and then slept on it and realised that I really just needed to let it dry a lot more and not use so much paint. But yeah, that was gorgeous. It's just another clean off sheet. I thought I'd show you some of my duds as well. That, I think I just picked up some secondary bits. And then another clean off sheet. So you can see that first day was a bit of a disaster, but I did get a few nice ones in the end, and I really love the stamping that I did as well. So I'm going to put these to the side and find some bits that I might like to use, and then we will see how I'm going to use them. I have the notebook here that came in the mushroom scrapbook paper set that I got from PandaHall. I have removed about 2/3 of the pages from this. You'll see the way I did that in my next video. I want to use this as a bit of an art journal. So I have some of my tissue paper down, and I'm just spraying some brown stress oxide ink onto a stamp block there. I'm just adding a bit of water to it. I'm going to use that to smush the ink onto my page. Adds beautiful colour. It's a good way of getting a nice spread of ink. The spray tends to go everywhere. I tissued down some excess so it doesn't get too wet. And then I just spray a few drips of water on top. They will activate and make a nice texture. So I've got one of my tissue prints here. This one didn't turn out the best, but I really loved the texture that I got on it. And perfect to rip up and use for my collages, and that's what I wanted all my tissue paper pieces for. So I'm using a few different prints for this project, just ripping little bits off. I will be using paintbrush to apply some matte medium to the tissue paper to adhere it to the page, and then I will go over it with the matte medium again to seal it. And the wetness of the matte medium reactivates the ink a bit, and the tissue paper sort of soaks up the colour, which is really good. And it also makes the tissue paper more translucent. Another print there that I'm just ripping a little bit out of to put down the bottom. Just love the texture and the colour that this is adding to my page. I've seen a lot of people using tissue paper, and I haven't really used a lot of it before, but now I see why they like it so much, especially the gel prints. It's just beautiful to use. Very easy and a lot of fun, and very forgiving too. So because it's wet, it's quite easy just to rip the overhang off the edges of the page. I've got the print that I did with the bubble wrap here, and I'll add that for a bit more texture. I have the mushrooms that I stamped, and I've just torn around one of those so I can stick it down. There's also the words that I stamped out, and I decide I'll add some of those to the page. And it's a bit bare down that left-hand side, so I rip out another piece to add there as well. So I also got these awesome photo corners from PandaHall, and I'd like to use those in this project. So I'm just inking with some brown ink over the top of them, just to add a bit of contrast and grunginess. I decided to ink around my page, makes a nice border. Just over the whiter bits on the page. Have this cute little mushroom card piece that came in the scrapbook kit. I'm going to use the photo corners with that. So I did show these labels. I thought they were just plastic ones that you'd cut out, but they are stickers. So I use one of the labels and peel it off and stick it to my page. And then I'm going to fit the photo corners on the four corners of my little mushroom card there. And because they're self-adhesive, I can just stick them straight down to the page. I'm cutting out one of the number pieces that I stamped from the Tim Holtz stamp set, and I'm going to use the matte medium to stick that to my label as well, just to finish things off. And I really love the way this page turned out. I think it's beautiful. Love all the colours and the theme. So we're going to go on and do another page now. And I've got, I think it turned out to be my favourite page, the one I did with the magazine transfer and the number stamps. So I'm going to cover my whole page with that gel print on the tissue paper. So just applying the matte medium down first. And sticking my tissue paper down on top. Now I think some of my matte medium dried, so I've got a few bubbles there. I'm going over the top carefully just to seal it all down in case I want to add some mediums over the top. Not too worried about the wrinkles and bubbles. It is my own personal art journal that I can experiment in. And again, very easy to rip down the edge of the page there. And even though I'm ripping into the page a bit, I don't mind the white of the page showing. I like the ripped look there. So some of the pieces I didn't stick down properly, so I'm just reattaching them. Making sure all the edges are stuck down. Just can't believe how much fun it is using this tissue paper. And it's quite sturdy, you know, pulling off the gel print, I was breaking it when it was a bit wet and that, but when you're using the matte medium over the top, I didn't get any tears in it. And I'm quite heavy-handed, so I have a Tim Holtz person there, just inking around him with some black ink. You can see I've also got some photo negatives. I've got a pile of them here and I like using those. Going around the edge with my black ink and getting any of the spots where I ripped the tissue paper off the page, just going over them with the black ink as well. And they blend in very nicely. So checking the placement for my photo negative. I want my man sitting on it, sort of. Then I decided it would look a bit better if I rip it down a bit. It just takes up a bit too much of the page. So I'm using my tacky glue just to stick that down. You could use your matte medium. Now I have these letters, they're plastic letters that I got from the second-hand shop. They've got quite thick plastic around them, so I chopped that down a bit. I was determined to find a way to use them. And then I just apply my tacky glue where the letter or the number is to stick them down. Because they're so thick, I have to hold on to them for a while and apply pressure for a while to get them to stay adhered to the page. So I repeat that process with my numbers. Then I've got some splatter stamps, so I'm using one of those with my black ink as well, just to add a bit more interest to the blanker spots there. Using my 450 glue to stick my man down. He needs some good glue on him because the negatives are nice and slippery and the plastic on the number and letters is so thick that I wanted a good strong glue to hold him down. So now I want to show you some of the ways that I want to use the rings that I got, the binder rings, for some organisation around the place. So the first thing I wanted them for was my stencils. I have a number of stencils that already have holes in them to hang on binder rings. I keep them in these photo albums and scrapbook albums, which is good. You can just flick through and see them. but I think it'll be a lot easier just to have them hanging somewhere on the rings, and I think that will save some room in my craft room as well. So I'm going through my albums and just finding the ones that already have holes in them ready to be hung. So once that's done, just open up one of the rings. And then I'm just putting my stencils on from the biggest to the smallest. Now this stencil doesn't have a hole. There's plenty of room there to put one, so I use my crocodile to do that. Such an easy way to store them and so easy to flick through them, see what you've got. You can open it up, take one off, put it in a different position if you want to move them around. So very easy to use like that. So next I want to do something similar to organise my plant tags. So I'll come back in a minute and we'll have a look at all the projects that we've done today.
We did all the gel printing. So I've got some of my cleaning up papers and scrap papers, but I'll use them. I stamped on some of the tissue paper, and yeah, got heaps and heaps now that I can use in further projects. I had so much fun with that. I'm going to do a lot more, so it's good that I've got so much tissue paper. Definitely got enough to last me a while, which is awesome because there's so many ways you can use it and it's so much fun to use for your collages. And the next thing I did was use the little notebook that came in my set of mushroom scrapbook goodies, which I love. And I had altered that, taken some pages out so I could use it as an art journal. By taking pages out, I have more room to layer things up on the pages that I create on. So we did do a couple of collages and incorporated tissue paper that we gel printed. And I also used the photo corners, which was one of the products as well. I absolutely love using those. And I did use the card and the label that came from the scrapbook set as well. And I love the way that turned out. It was so much fun to do. And the pages in these little books are nice and sturdy as well. So they take quite well to the mixed media being done on them. So I thought that was a nice way to utilise this. And then we did this page as well. And I used the gel print as a background there. Just had so much fun with those. I decided to do a bit of organisation with my binder rings. So I did put some of my stencils onto binder rings. So these are the ones we did together. So easy to flick through, and you can hang them up on a little hook and you can add to them. And then I've got this little set of stencils, which I thought would be great, and a binder ring as well. So I think that's a great way to store some of your stencils. And then one of the main reasons I got the binder ring, which isn't really crafting, but it's going to help me organisation-wise, is to store my plant labels. So I keep all my plant labels. A lot of these plants are probably dead, but I like to keep the labels in case I want to like repurchase them and try and keep them alive. Some of them are alive though, but I do like keeping the labels from the plants that I've got, and I like to be able to read the back, and this way you can look at the pictures, find them quite easily, and then flip it over to read the information on the back. And I had about 10 Ziplocs full of plant labels, and I think this is a much better way of storing these as well. So I've still got a few to sort out, but I thought I would show you how I'm going to go about doing that. So I had so much fun with all that product. So thank you again to PandaHall for sending it to me. Absolutely love it, and I'm having a ball. Still got one more tutorial video to do where I'll be using a lot more of the mushroom goodies plus some of the things that we have used today. Trying to incorporate a whole lot of it. I've also got the spacing tools, so I must have a play with those as well. So keep an eye on that. Don't forget to use your code if you purchase anything. Just a reminder, it's YXYTNAT. You put that in on checkout, and all the links are down below to my products as well as PandaHall if you want to go on and get lost in there looking at all their awesome products. So do take care of yourselves, happy crafting, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.